Yeah. So on that point, it's a good point you're making. I mean, it's also like cultural. Like, you know, it's, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot is the idea that every community. When I was in LA, I was around a lot of Persian people, a lot of people in the Persian community, and the thing is about that community was that we used to have class like singles, and they would talk about the issues that their parents had coming from other countries, and under Islamic rule, and different challenges of America, and
It, yeah, you went out. I can't hear you
yeah,
anymore.
yeah. So I was saying like you know the Torah in terms of observance, it was also dealing with that those aspects of the show. The problem with psychology or modern psychology is, obviously it doesn't even acknowledge the neshama, but it more so like, it gives you your success and your functionality in the work system. So your ability to wake up every morning and go to work and earn wages and pay bills, if you're able to do that, you're functional. You don't break laws. You're not doing something specifically to hurt yourself. Whatever. These are the types of things that they look at as and we look at our relationship with the mitzvahs, our relationship with intentions, kavana, and these types of things. It seems like we're separate at in that way, and that separation is usually connected to other habits and other things, other experiences in our life that we haven't reconciled, and that's why we have to go forward. And so one of the things I notice with a lot of African Americans is that a lot of them, you hear them talk about like their backgrounds, they came from the streets. And so they talk about these different like just these they talk about the different things that they went through and different things that happened to them. And the thing is that that is a fundamental part in connecting to God, right? Because it's like the thing about trauma and experiencing trauma from your past, if you don't go into that place and really understand it from a new perspective, you have this subconscious thought, well, I was in this particular situation in life where I had these experiences, and where was Hashem, right? And so when we look at like African Americans, as a community, as a unique community on planet Earth, we have to ask the question: is like, it's a fair thing for us to say to God, why did you let my ancestors go through slavery? Why did you put us in a situation where we're being discriminated against? Why are you putting us in a situation where people are murdered and raped and killed because of their skin tone that you created? Right? Now, I could come up and just give you a quick answer and say, oh, because we have this divine purpose and we had to go through all these things. But that doesn't change the pain, right? It doesn't change the fact that, like, in the world today, I'm still looked at as either something entertainment, something sexual, or something violent, right? That's like a real concept. And that's not just like, if I go to Africa, a lot of Africans will see me. They're not seeing me like, oh man, you just like, I mean, if it benefits somebody in general, they're like, you guys are some other, right? So it's just saying that, it's just saying that, you know, these are real things. You know what I'm saying? And when I see like some of the African Americans in the Jewish community, it's like I look at it and I say, you know what? The truth of their Torah comes from answering those questions. Because until they answer those questions and resolve that conflict, right? Like say a girl was molested as a child, God forbid, she has to reconcile that. If a kid was abused, you know, and you said they have to reconcile, you know, that issue, right? And so, you know, if they don't reconcile it, you know, the best thing that they can do with the observance is, you know, to be like someone else, right? Because clearly the person that I am, clearly the situations I've experienced are not holy, right? And that's why I went through these things, right? So if I become something else and someone different, someone better, someone new and improved, then I can establish my relationship with God from there. And so from that perspective, you know, you see a lot of African American Jews, you know, they don't want to deal with that reality of like their existence and where was God? Where was the protection? Where was the love? And we're not talking like, you know, 1,000 years ago, 2,000, we're talking about like, you know, now. Like, why did I have to be black and born in America? Why are they calling me black to begin with? Why is that my definition of myself? That's number one. And two, with this narrative that they create about me, why is it isolated from anything other than North America? And why do they want to tell me I have no identity in this and all that thing? They're saying this to me. I don't think I don't have an identity, right? So these are real issues, right? And you know, this is what spirituality is. You know, we hear the Rabbanim, you know, asking these questions in the Torah. Why is it written like this? Why is it like this? Why is the letter like this? So I can ask God, why have you put me in a reality where I'm being treated like an animal? Why am I the other? Why can't I just fit in like everyone else? Like, why can't I just be another person? Why do I have this whole concept built around me? Right? So, so these are the real questions. And so I think I'm not, I'm not limited from those questions. You know what I mean? I'm not limited to that. I've asked those questions, you know, and I've concluded answers, right? And answers that I can't go to anyone else to get. I got to do it because I'm a product of the spirit of what we're talking about. Like I can't go to another rabbi and explain to me the ancestral heritage of my people. That's crazy. It's like he doesn't go to someone. Ashkenaz guy doesn't go to Sephardic guy and say, hey, you know, explain to me what happened to us in Europe. I mean, he can give his insight, but you know, the situation in North America is just like, you know, that's a real thing. So because of that, not dealing with those questions, you know, as a community, right? We're when the Nation of Islam or any black movement ask that question. Yeah, they say, hey, white people are evil, and that's it. But what about God? What accountability does God have as it relates to how my ancestors were treated and how are currently treated? Because it's not good. It's not pleasurable, right? Why does God create a world based around economy and materialism, and then me and my community are subjected to not having access? Like, what's going on? These are real questions. I'm saying, like, I mean, people want to play, in the big leagues. These are good questions. Because without resolving these questions, you can't move on with your own identity. I can't see who I am as holy. I can say it all I want. I'm black and I'm proud, black and beautiful. But do I really believe that? Because if I really believe that, why would I have to say that it's black? That's the name they created, not me, not us. They created that. So why do I have to hold by it? And again, I mean, again, like people are upset about it. They get mad and say, "Oh, you're not proud of yourself." You hang out with the white Jews. You're ashamed of who you are now. You want to attack blackness, bro. I have no I have no respect for white intellectual thinking. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing profound about it. It's nothing holy about it. There's nothing Kedusha about it. It's nothing. And the only reason why we even thought white people had any type of wisdom is because they, connected themselves to some Jews that were Ashkenazi. You know what I mean? Jews trying to stay safe, And, but other than that, just like, I mean, come on now. So, and again, it's not coming from a place of anger or frustration. It's just coming from a place of just self-confidence, self-love, and connection to God. Not order, right? But that's what I'm dealing with, right? That's the reality that I'm in, right? But it's love to everybody. But I have to reclaim the holiness of my history. I have to do that. I have to see Big Mama and Big Daddy. I have to see that as holy. If I don't work to see the holiness in me, and that's so much of Chief Rabbi Pinchas's work. That's really a main part of his work, is dealing with that, because he's the one who really enlightened me to this. Like, I got to be, I mean, Rabbi Pinchas is a game changer. He's the one, when I was coming out of yeshiva, he's the one who brought me this idea. He said, look at the Ethiopians. They had thousands of years of Jewish tradition, right? Maybe there were things that weren't Talmudic, maybe not, whatever. But they were Jews, and they kept the holidays and the best they could, the laws of purity, all these things. And then they came to Israel, and then they dropped their cultures and said, "Oh, well, we're here. We're in a new reality. We got to be Ashkenaz. We got to be Sephardic, and we could keep our Ethiopian traditions to a degree, but this and blah blah blah." And then in Rabbi Pinchas shows, in one generation, none of the kids are all like non-Jews. They're like goyim, basically. They don't keep the Torah. They don't keep anything. And I challenged some of the Ethiopians here. I said, why don't y'all be teaching me none of the stuff your ancestors learned in Ethiopia? They can't say nothing. So it's just to say that. And then, like, well, when Al Yom Kippur, now, I'm on a Temple Mount, but there were times, before I would go to shuls, but I specifically went, there's one particular place, it's called Zichri Moshe, very holy place. And I would, do Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur, whatever it was, I did it, and I would sit with them, there, and do for the services, whatever, and I would just sit there and I was like, all these people in this room, they have everything in common with each other. They grew up, their family histories, the language they speak, everything. And that's a very powerful additional strength when you are building a relationship with God, right? To be from your perspective. And the truth is, we've never had that as Black people in America. We've never had that. We had the church, this Jesus, this false idol that they put on us, that's going to come and save us and help us, and all these magical powers and all this, Ijima genie stuff, and they had that, right? Jesus' magical power, he's going to save you. Don't worry, he died for you. You don't have a tikkun. You have no correction. There's a man who died for you before, a Jewish guy. You're not Jewish, but he's Jewish, and he died. And because he died, you don't have to do you don't have to do tshuva, you don't have to, or whatever you got to do is minimal. And you took that from a whole people of them to work on themselves because some other guy came. So that's that. That's what Black people were given on the plantation. Because we know that's not what they were doing in West Africa. We know that. We talked to the Igbos. on Zion Lex, right? We spoke, right? They explained to us Christianity came in the 19th century and they were forced to take it on. They were never holding by anything Christianity, so that's a lie, right? Were there Christians in Africa? 100%. They were not on the west of Africa. You know what I'm saying? In the transatlantic slave trade, right? And that whole thing that came much later. But the point is, you're saying so we have that dynamic, right? And 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 so like that, the main point is not to go so in detail, but the main point is just saying that in order for me to be a man, in order for me to be a man, I have to see the holiness of my father in the same way I see the holiness in Rabbi Akiva. I have to, or you're a slave. You're a slave. If you don't see the holiness and where you come from, you're a slave. Why? Because you need someone else to validate your existence. But when you come from holiness, when the expression of you is holiness, my ancestors were, they Mississippi, Atlanta, this, Alabama, all these places, bro. They were giants, bro. Giants. They were like Abraham Avinu. They said, oh, Abraham Avinu didn't have the Torah, there's no Mount Sinai. But they still were righteous. That's what I come from. My people weren't even allowed to read. But yet they were able to speak justice. It was inherent to them. Righteousness was inherent to them. Equality was inherent to them. The Palestinians in Gaza don't care about no equality. They want to kill. There's no equality. They're not looking for no peace. They're like, we're coming to wipe you out. There's no sit-in marches. So anyways, the point is just saying, but the thing is, the world that I come from was taught to be scared of me talking that way, right? Because they put images of like black nationalism, and and I understand why past generations, bro, they were telling us that we were ugly. They told us we weren't human. They told us we were like animals, like baboons and monkeys and these types of things. So you tell me a group of people saying that I'm beautiful, I'm this, I'm this, I'm this, I'm superior. What do you think they're going to say? That's human response. So when I talk that way now, people want to connect it to people in the past that were responding to oppression when they were talking about how beautiful they were, when they were talking about these things. This isn't black nationalism. This is God. I am equal to all men. That's what I'm saying. On a base, off jump, I'm equal to all men. Now, where I go with that has to do with something unique with my relationship with Hashem. And so that's the conversation that I'm pushing. And there are people it's a pushback. But I'm not saying it with words, you know what I'm saying? I'm doing it with actions. I reached out to the whole Hebrew Israelite community. All of them. Everybody. And I'm building with them. I'm talking to them. ISBCK, whatever, this name, that, all these people. I'm building with them. I'm on their podcast. I'm communicating. I'm giving word to Torah. I'm building kinship. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm doing that. Now, okay, now people want to jump on the bandwagon and they still can't do it like the way I was, pushing it. And I'm still pushing it. And truthfully, since I had those conversations with a lot of Hebrew Israelites, they're not even as turned up anymore. They're focused on other things. I mean, they still, say what they say, they still have their language, but which I think is, detrimental to them and what they're trying to achieve. But the point is that, and then also I respect the Hebrew Israelites in the community. They're trying to improve the community. They are trying to bring a order of spiritual morality and justice in their communities. Now, do they have to go out and tell everyone that they're the only Jews, and anyone who says that they're not Jewish by the way that they understand what Jews are or Israelites or whatever is false? I disagree with that. But guess what? I come from a community that does the same thing. They got their 12 tribe charts. The other people got their 12 tribes. Everybody got their 12 tribe charts. I'm just saying, that's not my point, because you could be in this like these silly conversations forever. And but the point, that we're just dealing with is this idea of like, how do I connect to God? because people come into Judaism and they just make it into an idol. I'm keeping it 100, bro. I'm keeping it 100 with you. I'm not going to lie to you. If you see someone wearing a big black hat and a strimal and a big black coat like a European guy, you could say that he's in the Hasidim. He has not found himself. He's only connected to an external Judaism. He hasn't been able to
No,
pick up that. Yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, that brings up what you were just saying brings up a point and question um, that I was listening to the class today, and I went back and read through um, the Sefer from yesterday morning. um, Dealing with like this is the question, and it's leaning towards this here. Um, Dealing with like the residue that you were talking about yesterday through reading Ram Cole yesterday. It made me think about the just the mindset of the identity crisis and the things, the resentment and the different things like that. Those with the Einstein, if we are the residue of the Einstein, of the uh, of the Most High, then reading through it, it seemed like there was a lot of very intimate details as far as in his line connecting through and to and around the residue itself. If we're made in his image, then could can we make the same connection with the way that we what residue are we producing as far as in our good works, as far as in creating those the negative or the positive angels, um, and even from the aspect of as a people as a whole, the residue that we're leaving, basically our mark on the world, our mark in creation, and literally our mark in creation. And so from that standpoint, what the direction that you're going and that Yeshiva is going, uh, is that the residue that we're looking to leave has nothing to do with identity. It has to do with the soul. And that's what we need to be remembered by. That's what we need to push. That's what we need to to produce or manifest in this world and reconnecting those souls, where men will be able to eventually come out of the whole false identity um, concept. And so what we're dealing with the souls in general, because that's what's going to make the best and the most positive residue as we're dealing back with creation. Am I, I was this is what was kind of going through my mind as far as with the class yesterday, and what you're saying today.
Yeah, no. You're on it. You're on it. And the thing is like this: when we talk about evening the playing ground, I'm saying I'm African American. They call me that, man. This African American. But I got American Indian in me. I got Spanish in me. I got European slave masters that raped my ancestors. So you trying to just like focus me on Africa is to say that's a whole other conversation. But the point that's also playing me, right? That's also not accepting my uniqueness and the combinations of who I am. But the reality is the only way that I can balance the playing ground in America is by showing the white man that he's not white, but he's rather a soul, just like I am. And any ambitions or progressions that have to do with his well-being, if I, as a minority, am not taken into consideration, he's only going to suffer from a soul level because we're all connected. When I go to institutions and they want to categorize me, whether it's for wealth distribution or whatever it is, the only way I can change that is by showing them that they are not external beings, but rather souls that are expressed as a body, right? The only way to change the paradigm of our experience in America is by teaching Americans that they're souls. That is the position that we're in. It's not through law, it's not through legislation, it's not through anything that you exist today. The only way to change the condition of our people in North America, which is a genocide through economics, okay? It's a genocide through economics. That's what we're dealing with. So the only way to change that is by teaching the world that they have souls. We cannot do it through power and might as the people that we're dealing with. God did not put us in that position. So when a person is not able to go into the fact that they have a neshama, because that neshama connects me to all the neshamas that came before me. So when I connect myself to those neshamot, then it's like I see a similar correction. And when I see a similar correction, now I can see God's perfection. I don't see misery. I don't see slavery. I don't see oppression. I don't see Jim Crow. I see correction. Correction through a specific type of environment. Right? So that's what I'm dealing with, right? That's what we're dealing with, is that's what we're up against. In order to change the condition, we have to teach the world about souls. That's the only way there's an evil playing ground. So when people come into Torah and the tools of the Torah, and they have abandoned themselves thinking that who they are was bad, and now if there's someone else, and they assume another identity, and they raise their kids, and they make their kids perm their hair and do long peyot, and wear the outfits, and speak in this, and do these same things that all these other people are doing in their lives, and because of that, I'm going to reverse the curses that I came from. Oh, maybe they weren't curses, maybe they were brachot. But you only can see the brachot when you connect to the soul level. When you connect to the soul level, all the material stuff doesn't matter. That's the power of the Temple Mount, the Har Bayit, right? Because once you go to the Har Bayit, all bets are off, baby. I don't care about your synagogue. I don't care about, this and your history. We are souls and we're standing in front of God. That's it. That's it. Right? And so being able to connect to that is the power. If a man does not have that, they are not a man, they are a boy, and they're looking to get sunned. And I'm saying a lot of the Black Jews that come in here have not reconciled this issue. And so they come in with these outfits and this, and they always lose. They're always, oh, well, I got discriminated against. I was this, but it's just like, what? I think a lot of Black Jews, receive a curse from Shemaim because they receive wisdom from another community. Not saying, okay, you're Jewish, I'm Jewish, fine. But from another community, right? And they don't want to go back and help anybody in their community. That's a curse. That's a curse, right? You wonder why your kids are suffering. You wonder why you have all these problems, why you're receiving this. You don't even want to look at where you came from, bruh. You got these girls, people, oh, why don't you marry a Black Jewish girl? Bro, a lot of these girls, they got problems, bro. They come in here, they want to wait. They want a biracial baby. They hate themselves. Some of these sisters are from the hood, bro. Like, they're like, Whitley's in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. These girls are some of them from LA, Compton, Watson, whatever. They were marrying an Ashkenaz guy, and then it don't work out. But they married him, not because of him, but because of what he represented for her in her psychology, and maybe even vice versa. But the point is just saying that, when we're talking about these things of taking on the Torah and taking on the mitzvot, this is what Abraham is teaching us. Who was Abraham? Abraham is a prototype before Am Israel, before the Jewish people, before Mount Sinai, before Moses, before that whole chapter. You have to become Abraham. Abraham comes from Terach. His father was a huge idol worshiper, right? An idol dealer. He was like the biggest idol dealer. He was working for Nimrod. And out of that level of darkness comes Abraham. So you think Abraham, he took his father with him. As Abraham became enlightened, he didn't separate from his family and was like, "Oh, I'm done with y'all." No, he took his immediate family with him, and kept teaching the people of the communities that he was from. So if we can't get in that place of not self-love but God love through self, through history, you're not going to be able to help anybody because you're just going to be running around like this. You got all these guys, they Jewish rappers, right? Ah, y'all Jewish rappers. Y'all Jewish rappers. But how many of them you see performing in front of black people who are only getting the worst type of music? Right? The worst information is coming to through music. But how many of the black rappers do you see going out there? No, they rather sit around and dance at a bar mitzvah and be a clown to these people, bro. They don't respect no rap. They don't care about no hip hop, bro. That's not music to them. That's niggerdom. Let's keep it real, bro. They don't respect no rap. They don't even know what you're saying. You know what I'm saying? Just like they don't know what Jay-Z's saying. Just like they don't know what Little Dirk is saying. But it's entertaining. It's black people. You know, this guy's wearing, this outfit. He's dancing boogie woogie, boogie woogie. You know, it's rap. You know, my parents won't let me listen to regular rap, but they'll let me listen to him. You know, so hey, but they don't respect what you're saying, bro. They don't love you like that. You're a clown to them, bro. And for me, like I mean, and like I said, like I'm just I'm just sitting back. Like somebody could say, well, I heard this person's music and it inspired me. All right, that's very good. But did it inspire? Did it inspire you to go and inspire other people? Did it inspire you to go and get 10 of the brothers together and do like a weekly learn together? Did it inspire you to do that? No, it made me want to be a part of what you were doing. But that's not where the action's at. The action is seeing a sense of responsibility for my community, for my environment that God born me into, right? And then to be able to give there and expand. This guy said to me yesterday, he said, Mordecai, why you do all this stuff? You focus on non-Jews and everything. Why not just focus on the Jewish community? And it's just like, what does that mean to you? Like, what does that mean? I got them. I'm holding them up. I'm holding them too. You talking to me? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm holding you too. Like, I mean, it's just like my capacity is planet Earth. That's my capacity. My capacity is not a slice of the pie. It is the pie and the packaging and the table that it's on top of. Right? And I gotta be comfortable with that. That's who I am. And you know what? There's a lot of people from my background are the same way, and they're doing it with nothing. They're doing it with sand, rocks, and stones, and making building empires out of nothing. People like try to make the rappers, but the rappers are just dudes that use their mouth to get their family some money. Basketball, that's a level IQ. It's an IQ. It's not a size. It's an IQ level. And some of these guys were able to achieve a level of IQ where they were able to utilize the fundamentals of the sport to elevate their families. And they only did that because of a lack of options. So, anyways, just learn a little rum call, but I just can't stress how important this is. It's like how much self-love and who you are. But the only way world has ever seen black people love themselves is through the condemning of other people. And I'm just saying, like, I will use the word black because that makes people feel comfortable, but I'm a neshama. And my neshama is filled with lights, and these particular lights had to come into this world and have these particular sitsunim, right? So, like, them saying I'm African American or black and trying to give me a narrative to convince me that I'm not divine. That's a simsun, right? That's a limitation, right? So I have a series of simsunim, right, that are in my reality that I have to overcome. I have to surpass them and get to a world of a greater reality, right? And so Hashem gave me that challenge, specifically for that reason. All right, hold on. Okay. Okay, so I think we left off at, was it 10? Yep. Okay, so it says, blah, 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 blah. Okay, it says, Vizehu or panim umikif. Okay, elacham. So he says this is the inner, and he says this is the inner and express encompassing light, right? So what we were talking about yesterday is like, you have this idea of a cuff, right? You heard it in share yesterday. So basically, in the same way that you have a puppet, the puppet has a mover and a maker and an influencer from above that you can't see if you're watching a puppet show. The same way we do as humans, right? And we're connected to a series of lights and spiritual structures from above. And those lights go through this process of called Simsun, and in the Simsun they go in this place of Nishu, right, which is his residue. So what we learned yesterday is this process of the fact that this light, how do we understand it? The Kabbalists gives us a tool called the cuff. What is a cuff? The cuff is a way for us to intellectually understand how the lights from the upper world come into this world, right? So in the same way that there's a strings that connect the puppet to its maker, the same way we have lines called the cuff line that connects us to this upper reality. Now, what we learn is that light from the upper world, it reveals itself based off of the vessel, right? And the vessel, the expansion of the vessel or the decreasing of the vessel has to do with the free will, right? But the main thing is that the light from the upper world, all of it does not come down into the Nishu. Only half of it does. The other half of it, it's in a place of or makif, surrounding light, right? So he's saying there's two aspects: the inner and then the encompassing, right? So those are the two aspects. These are the names of the two levels of light. The spherotes, which is the underlying foundation of the vessel. Here we have the explanation of the inner and encompassing light. Thus, the Zohar states that he is inside every spherot and outside of every spherot. So he's saying this life force, right? So you have the spherot. We're made up of these 10 dimensions, or we can understand the light that's in our vessel from these 10 dimensions, but we're not limited to that per se. Or you could say the 10 dimensions is not limited to the physical body, but rather only a portion of it is. She says, as we discussed earlier, the actions of the line in governing the residue through all the pathways discussed itself in the mode of limitlessness, right? So it starts in limitless, it starts in infinity, and then it comes into limitation, which is a mode of perfection. Thus, every single level within the residue is under the supervision of the Ein Sof, the unlimited reality, right? We're connected. Nothing is separate. It's all connected. There's a straight line that comes from the Creator through the Ein Sof all the way to the Simsun, all the way to the Nishu. No separation. We are connected to God. Okay, that's what he's saying. Every second we're connected to God. Thus, every single level within the residue is under the supervision of the Ein Sof and in his eccentric perfection. And these different parts exist only because it was the will that they should exist. This is expressed by saying that the Ein Sof is founded in every single spherot on every level. So he's saying that the building blocks of life, don't think the Ein Sof is separate. It's within it. It's like we're saying, like you have the soda. You're filling up the soda in the pitcher, right, and it overflows, right. The foam and the whole thing is overflowing and it's spilling everywhere, and it has a different expression than but it's still the same. It's from the same source. It's from the same pour, right? Maybe it's not the best expression, but I like it. All right. So he says, in the case of the line, everything enters the space. It accommodates itself entirely to the residue. So that light, the syringe, only Well, hold on. I'm sorry, we already did that. Okay. Okay, he said this is expressed as saying that Ein Sof is found in every single spheros on every side, and the entire existence and function of the sphere is only through him. So we're just seeing that, like, because people come, they got these like this Trinity and all these other ideas where they want to separate God and create dimensions. You got Hinduism and they got all these gods and all these different things. So he wants you to see that even though there's a building block from the seed to the blossoming of the flower, but nevertheless is all from the same source. It says, Nimsa Shakel Haker Hu Hain Sof. He says, this is thus the essence of the Ein Sof, thus it be he, nevertheless, in every action that he executes for the sake of the created realm, the beings, even those who are on their level, nothing is revealed of him except the very smallest part. So everything you think you see, everything is manifest, as we discussed earlier, it's only the smallest part, the inner light. So everything we're seeing is an expression of the inner light. That's very important. However, the encompassing light is serving the created realms and entering into the place created by the Simsun is not revealed. Anything man may understand about the works of the Creator is only a drop in the ocean. So he's saying, like, and this is the flaw of science, because the whole basis of science is based off of what they are able to see, whether it's with the naked eye or through a microscope. And the tradition is teaching us that that's not anything. You cannot gauge reality on that premise. It says, nimsa sheha shechafat ha'in sof al ha'amaroget. Okay, so he says, and thus, even though the Ein Sof looks down provincially and supervises in the levels of limitation on which the lower realms and creatures receive the greater part of his providence, so to exalt for us, this is the encompassing light. The last part of the action is the aspect of the perfection that clothes itself in the executed itself. It executes work itself. However, when the level of perfection that we are able to understand is contained in the action executed by the line within the residue, it is nothing but the smallest part of the action. This is what stands to govern, to govern the visible, the residue whose measure corresponds to the smallest part. Again, he's explaining the mechanism of the process of how the light from God goes to the Ein Sof, goes to the Simsun, manifests itself in this frame of residue and gives it good and evil. It has a frame of unity, has all these mechanisms within it. The Hine ha-shakafat hazot nimsat bekama. So he says, now this providence exists in several ways in each sphere. Within it, on all of its different levels. These are called exterior, interior, and intermediary vessels. Okay, that's big. He says, so in each level, each sphere, so Hetzegevur Tefer, this is a big idea. Hetzegevur Tefer, that's called Yesod Malchut, Chokma Bina, Keter Chokma Bina, Hetzegevur Tefer, that's called Yesod. He's saying, he's just about to say it right here. He says both the inner and encompassing light are divided into 5 levels. Okay, they correspond to the 5 levels. So each of the different levels, and we learned this with Rav Ashlag. I don't think Otzan was going to share, but we learned in Rav Ashlag that within every sphere, every different aspect of the soul is in every different sphere, right? And all the different kingdoms, the worlds, the whole thing, right? He says this corresponds to the levels of skulls of Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chayim, Yetida. The Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama are clothed respectively in the exterior, intermediary, and inner vessels, while the Chayim Kita encompass the vessel of the outside. So we know this. This is like basic Kabbalah. The Chayim Kita are the external lights in the Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, the internal aspect, and the surrounding light. Recall Ella Nikraima Be Shemot Parima Lifi Derek Hash Tachafi Potem. So he says all are called by their own individual names according to the way in which they spread and extend. The explanation of spread of inter and encompassing light in the writings of the Ari relate only to the Ein Sof looking down. So the Ein Sof looking down is that encompassing light, and then the aspect of the within, like the Mishu and all these other, the cup, all these things, these are the internal lights, right? So God is governing over everything, but there's specific things that represent internal and external, and things in between. He says Ari relates to the Ein Sof looking down over the providential supervision of the different levels in accordance to the laws of the residue and in its ordered level. He said, in the vision, it appears as light made of perfectly wrought vessels within and around, which is the light of the Ein Sof, and blessed be He on the levels of inner and external light. So at the end of each chapter, he's breaking down and explaining the visions of the prophets, right? In the books of Ezekiel, the book of Isaiah, all these different, books, visions that they have of chariots and all that. He does a thing at the end where he connects these principles, these concepts to different prophetic visions, which we haven't even tapped into. I mean, it's a whole nother aspect of the Sefer. We're not even dealing with. We're just dealing with general concept right now and being clear on general concept. But there's another level which is going through the process of understanding the visions of the prophets, which we'll get to. We'll do another share after we get to all 100 chapters, 140 chapters, something like this, and we'll go back over it. But for now, we're dealing with the broad approach to everything that's going on. So, any thoughts, reflections on anything we discussed so far? Amen.
Baruch Hashem. Just learn.
Oh, Chanel, you're at office? Can you say anything?
I'm not in the office. I think I missed like the first 8 minutes, so I kind of didn't get a full where we were in the discussion. So I have to go back and kind of listen, and then I'll see something online.
Okay, perfect. So it's big picture. The point is just seeing, all the creation around us as just looking at it and be like, wow, this is only a small expression of the light that's contained in this physicality. And understanding the creative process of how the light comes down into this world and how this light comes down in this world and how that light is a mechanism for life, right? And when something doesn't, if something dies, it's because that light force is withdrawing itself from an aspect of it, but the entity itself still exists. It's the light force transfers itself.